Hey, good morning. I'd like to call this meeting of Public Works Procurement and Contracting Committee to order. Today is Wednesday. No, that's the minutes. Today is Wednesday, August 19th, 2015. Roll call, please.
Calling the roll, Mr. Germana.
Here?
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Ms. Conwell.
Here.
Mr. Greenspan.
Here.
Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent. There is a quorum.
Do we have any public comment related to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair, no one is signed in.
Okay. We've got the minutes of August 5th. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Minutes are approved. Matter is referred to committee.
Resolution number 2015-0156, making an award on requisition number 34890 to a supplier to be determined in the amount not to exceed $12,800,000 for electric power services for various county facilities for the period 9/1/2015 through 5/1/2018.
Good morning.
Good morning. Mike Chambers with Public Works. First and foremost, the department is asking for approval of this under second reading suspension. I'd like to give a quick background on this. Last October, the Contract Purchasing Board approved Public Works to go ahead and enter into an energy purchase program with the County Commissioners Association of Ohio. Palmer Energy is the County Commissioners Association of Ohio Energy Program Manager, and I'm going to have them give you a brief presentation here in a minute. Ohio Revised Code allows us to do these joint purchase programs. In the past, the county did go out on its own, and we did our own request for bid and proposals. And we, in the past, chose CEI. And part of the presentation, I'm sure Mark Fry will note that CEI doesn't really bid these type of programs anymore. So we went ahead with this purchasing program. Same thing we do in the past with ODOT with the salt consortium. We're trying to get the bulk discount, trying to team up with other governments in Ohio. We felt that this was the best option for the county. And then in addition to that, I want to make sure we understand this is not just for our current buildings. Currently, right now, we're at about $4 million a year. We are including the future hotel, the convention center, and any additional buildings that the county may consider. So this isn't just current buildings, but it'll be also for any future buildings as well. And the program allows us to add and subtract buildings if we were to remove them as well. At this time, I'm going to introduce Mark Fry, who's president of Palmer. He'll give you a presentation, and after that, then we'll be happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, council members. My name is Mark Fry. I'm the president of Palmer Energy Company. And as Mike mentioned, Palmer Energy is the program manager for the County Commissioners Association energy purchasing programs, including the electricity program, which Cuyahoga County has elected to participate in. The current contract that the county facilities accepting distribution service from CEI are getting supplied today from First Energy Solutions. That is the deregulated, profitable arm of that organization. That contract is getting ready to expire, and the county asked Palmer and the CCAO through the energy program to put out an RFP. We did that. Basically, the current contract is for 24 months. Its average price over that term is about 6 cents a kilowatt hour for the purchase of electricity. And basically, one of our objectives is to figure out ways to control and reduce your electric costs. So we recommended to Public Works to make some modifications to your operations, to install some interval meters and some other things to make sure that you were getting the right mixture of on and off peak pricing for electricity. When you buy electricity has a significant factor on what the price of electricity is. So as you could expect, during very hot weather, the pricing of electricity can be a little higher. During very cold weather, same thing. During the middle of April, when it's 70 degrees out and a bright sunny day, it's pretty cheap. And likewise, in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning, electricity can be quite inexpensive. So as your facilities are utilizing electricity in varying quantities over those time frames, it starts to become important as to what the utility says you're buying versus what you're actually purchasing. In evaluating some of your facilities, we made a recommendation to Public Works that it looked like there was a mismatch between what the utilities structure indicated you were buying and what you were actually buying based upon evaluating your locations for particularly your larger consuming locations. So we went forward with the program. We did an RFP process to try to control and reduce your costs for those facilities. Out of that, we sent out to 13 different suppliers, including the existing supplier, First Energy Solutions. First Energy Solutions organization has made some modifications in their approach to the marketplace and elected not to respond to the RFP for your facilities. Not exactly sure why they chose not to do that, as you are a very large electric consumer, but that's their business. They can make their decisions as appropriate. We did, however, receive responses from 6 other suppliers, all good companies, that were very eager to provide electricity service to your facilities. The net result of that was we eliminated 4 of those suppliers, and we came down to 2 final suppliers for consideration. And the reason that we didn't come up with an existing single supplier is that the price of electricity changes very rapidly and can change from one day to the next. So when you go out and get a price of electricity from suppliers, the price is only good for that specific day. And that's what makes it complicated. So the risk is if you identify one single supplier, that they don't come in when you get the contract language negotiated and all that stuff with quite as sharp a pencil economically to get you the lowest possible price. So we recommended to Public Works, and they agreed that it might be prudent for county purchases to go to 2 suppliers, negotiate those contract terms. We've worked with Public Works and the prosecutor's office to negotiate, or the Department of Law, excuse me. Used to working with more typical county commissioners, I apologize. Working with the Department of Law to work through those terms and conditions to make sure that they were appropriate for your operations and your circumstances. We've worked through all those sets of terms and conditions while we were going through this process. That has been completed. And then once we go through these final stages, if you all approve this, we would basically do a final refresh with the authorization for the county executive to sign off on the best possible offer from one of those 2 suppliers that were shortlisted based upon their pencil on that particular day. Both of them are very good companies and have the ability to sell electricity into this area in a reliable fashion. In comparison to the existing contract, the original offers that we received in the RFP showed a savings over the term that's in front of you of about $18,000 a month. We don't have exactly the final numbers, but we believe that based upon what's going on in the market in the last few weeks since we started through this process, that those numbers would be very similar once we do the final refresh. Prices might even be a little bit better based upon what's going on in the marketplace. So a reasonably substantial savings, and I would be happy to answer any questions any members of council might have at this point in time.
Questions so far? Okay, Mr. Greenspan, Conwell, Miller.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, this actually is to the law department. So in the resolution, it clearly states that these 2 vendors are the 2 vendors to whom we will enter into an agreement, correct? Okay, because the title of the resolution is to be determined, but we know it's going to be one of 2. Okay. I understand the commodities market and how the prices fluctuate, but why was the 26th chosen as the date? It's the date after our meeting to which we have to ratify this. Why was a date chosen the 24th, the Monday before, or the week before? Why after we have to ratify? We have to approve this.
If I understand your question correctly, council member, and if I'm wrong, correct me. The thought process, as far as the timing of it, was my understanding that if we did a price, let's say on the 21st, and we selected a final supplier on the 21st, there's no guarantee that we would be able to secure that price when you all have that sitting in front of you on the 25th for final resolution because of the potential fluctuation in the market. The only way to allow for that provision is for a supplier who are getting down to very low margin structural arrangements in a potentially volatile price commoditized market, is to allow them to add extra margin into the deal, which for all intents and purposes, insurance. We work with Public Works and Department of Law in that regard and try to address it as quickly as possible after that time frame. That's the reason why we went through that process in that particular way.
We did want to ensure that there was time, but our current agreement expires at the end of August. So we wanted to make sure we came to the committee. We're doing our best to give as much lead time, getting it on the board, the agendas and all that other stuff. We had to work through law and make sure the agreements were acceptable. But the main reason is because our contract does expire at the end of August. We wanted to make sure we got it passed.
That time ain't under the question with, even if this was backed up and was given to us enough time for a third reading. I understand that. My question is, we have never approved a contract that does not have a vendor specified, to my knowledge, at the time we approved the legislation, which we're being asked to do at this time. The not to exceed I get, so we're protected from that perspective. But my question is on the timing to which the terms of the contract and the provider will not be known until after we vote on the legislation. That's unusual. So I just want to understand why.
Go ahead,
Sure,
please.
please.
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. It was our understanding that once the refresh happened and the prices were closed, there was a certain time frame within that day period that the county executive had to sign. So if we got the price, for instance, in the morning, it was only good he had to sign by 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's why our proposal was to get as much information and details about the process and the parameters and approval from council, giving the county executive to approve within those parameters so that when he got the refresh amount, we can get the document signed within a limited time period.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. So the last, I've got other questions, but I'll ask one more, just sticking to 3. This price that we're going to be receiving on the 26th, we're locked in through 2018?
Through May of 2018.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
It's 32 months.
correct.
Right.
We did consider 24 and 36, but for whatever reason, 32 months was a better price.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
Councilwoman?
How many facilities will this cover for the county? Is this gonna cover all our buildings?
It's going to cover all the county buildings. I have the list here I can leave with you
There's-
guys.
Is that county owned and leased or just county owned?
County owned, do you have the exact number
My,
on them?
my recollection, it was approximately 70 buildings. There are facilities,
70, did you say, or 7?
70 different electric accounts. Some of the accounts have multiple meters and some of the buildings have multiple meters and things. There's also some buildings that the county has that are served by Cleveland Public Power. Those are not included in this RFP. As a municipal utility, Cleveland Public Power, we don't have the ability to go out and shop third-party supply through the municipal electric utility. So those buildings are separate from this particular transaction.
I will leave you a list of them. It also includes some of our county pump stations, although small, but we did include them in here. Like I said before, we mentioned the hotel and convention center. I can leave this with you.
Okay, and can you provide this committee with the buildings that are under CPP? Because when we look at this contract amount, we're looking at, and we don't want the outside to think this is all this is the cost for the total electricity power. He's saying that we have some CPP suppliers, so there'll be an additional cost as far as the.
Hi, Councilman.
Hi there.
There's 3, I think, that are under the CPP. It's this building, the administration building, the Juvenile Justice Center, and 310 Lakeside. And I think the reason for that is that these buildings were built after the contract that First Energy had for power supply and for the county facilities, and that we went out to bid with for CPP at that time.
Okay, please, I'll identify you. This is
Mike Foley, I'm sorry, Director of
Director of
Sustainability.
So you said
Sustainability.
the administration building, juvenile justice, and
310 Lakeside, I'm sorry.
And looking out in the future, eventually we will try to consolidate all this. I mean,
As I understand it, this building and the Juvenile Justice Center have 10-year contracts with CBP, so I think we're out for a while. I think
and will the invoices be sent to the county? How does this work? So we have not to exceed 12.8. Will it continue to work? You know, bills are sent and.
Yeah, and going to the budget too, along that line, it's already in our operating budget. These are costs we've already assumed. We've done a similar thing with the gas, and we get the bills directly from the gas company. We pay them. It's going to be the same process. We will get the bills from them. We will go ahead and pay them.
Correct.
Okay, that's it for now.
Mr. Miller?
When I buy electricity at home, it's a fixed price, and they just multiply the amount of kilowatt hours times the rate. It sounds like this contract involves that we pay different prices depending on whether it's peak time or not. My question is how is that specified in the price quote?
Council member, the prices that are specified for on-peak and off-peak are fixed. It's a matter of what you're consuming during those on-peak hours, which basically is from 7 a.m. until 11 p.m. during the weekdays. And the rest of the time, weekends and those 8 hours in the middle of the night are off-peak periods. So we actually got prices from the suppliers who were the all-in fixed price that you're familiar with when you're purchasing at your home. But after evaluating those offers and the way and the methodology and the time of when you consume your electricity, during the analysis, it appeared that the on and off peak structure provided incremental savings to the county, and that's the reason we went that direction with the recommendation.
And is there anything about time of year or temperature outside or anything like that, or is the specification only based on the weekly cycle?
In regards to the purchase of the on and off peak electricity, it's only based upon the time of the day or the time of the day of the week. There's no variation in your cost from summer to winter, for instance. There's no change for, on-peak electricity in July would cost the same as on-peak electricity in December. So it's fixed throughout that entire term at the same price.
So they don't do anything with the fact that, as you say, it's cheaper in April than it probably is in July or December.
Correct. The way that the market approaches that is they have futures contracts that are out there that they're looking at the expectation of price in the future, and they're figuring out what those prices are, and they're bringing a weighted average cost based upon expected on and off peak consumption for the months and the amount that you're using of electricity in those particular months, and they're putting that all in, I call it soup. They're putting it out all in one big pot and creating two pots of soup, on-peak soup and off-peak soup, and giving us a weighted average price for both.
Okay, and this is probably a question for Director Foley. My question is how is the price that we got from CPP, how does it compare with the price that we're expected to get from this contract? And is the CPP price a single fixed price, or does it also have this peak and off-peak component?
Councilman Miller, I've got the records in here somewhere. I have to go back and check. I can find this for you. I think it's a little bit higher than the prices that we have for that potentially we'll get under this contract, and be honest with you, I don't remember right now whether they have peak and off-peak. I don't think that they
I
do.
can help you with that if you would like. My understanding of the CPP tariff, and is that there's various factors. They have fuel adjustment charges that vary over time based upon their cost of electricity associated, and then they've got demand charges that are associated with the bill, and then energy charges. So there's a number of different factors embedded in the supply costs that you're purchasing through CPP that would vary over time. As to the competitiveness piece of it, I'm not sure what the contract says, so that piece, I'm uncertain of.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Simon?
Thank you. So my question is regarding the two recommended companies, AEP and Champion Energy Services. What is their record with regard to providing solar energy? I understand the county purchases that and will be able to purchase that without penalty in this contract by another contractor. But what is the record? Do you know whether they can provide solar energy to the county, either of these two companies?
It's my understanding that, when you say you mean specifically solar or renewable in general terms? Okay.
Speaks to, and that might be a legal question, solar energy out clause that we don't get penalized going elsewhere for that. But why don't you tell me about the renewable in general with these two contractors? And then I want to make sure that we have the ability to, without penalty, to seek renewable energy sources without penalty, whether it's solar or by whatever means. Okay, so tell me about the renewable.
Okay. In the current agreement, you have, if I recall correctly, a 50% renewable component that basically you arranged a price with First Energy Solutions and then bought what's called renewable energy credits, which was basically a slight premium to your electric costs to make sure that 50% of the electricity was coming from renewable sources, whether it's solar, wind, or biomass, or some other methodology that would create a renewable resource. That option exists in this agreement. We don't know exactly what that premium is going to be. There will still be a slight premium, and that's something that's open. We could go 50%, we could go 100%, but we'll get prices back from both companies to determine what those numbers were. We had prices originally in the RFP responses from various vendors, and if I recall, it was $40,000 to $90,000 a year, depending on what percentage we went, 50 or 100 for an incremental cost for renewable resources. Once again, being solar and wind and biomass. Most of the time, as it sits today in the PJM footprint, which is where we're sitting, that supply comes from wind resources as it sits today. Over the long term, I expect that more and more of that will come from solar. In fact, I would make book on it as the price of solar installed costs continue to decline. Right. But basically, as it sits today, most of that would be driven by wind resources. Does that answer your question, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay.
Director, Mr. Chair, do you have anything to add?
Councilman, the only thing I was going to add is that one of the just things we wanted to, I guess, protect ourselves around is that there's some potential for some large solar happening in Cleveland and in the CPP territory. And if that happens, I'm not going to say it is or isn't, but if it happens, I think we wanted to make sure we would have the ability to, if the county wanted to participate and kind of in a potential project around large solar development, that we would have some flexibility in order to do that under the current contracts, either with CPP or with this potential new contract. So we think that we do. We think there's flexibility, enough flexibility that if this happens, and if the county wants to participate, we would have the ability to do it under the
Yeah, I saw that we have an amendment to the original contract to allow that. And do we have we're locked in for the 3 years, did you say? Locked in?
2.5.
2.5, okay, that's not bad. I mean, but there's no guarantee on savings. We just hope that we're going to reach the same savings that we had with the prior provider, right? Or are we going to be locked in just by the rate and that's it, once we select the supplier?
Presuming your consumption pattern doesn't shift
Yeah.
over the time frame, since we're buying on and off peak, based upon our analysis, it will create a lower cost out of pocket compared to the last 24 months of electric purchases. So that piece, and it coming from a purchasing background, it depends on what you determine or define as savings. To me, if there's less cash out of the county's pocket, that equals savings. Anything beyond that is avoidance. So from that perspective, it will create savings. As to the possibility that future electric prices may decline below that, that's always a risk. Just like if you go to the gas station this morning, in fact, I did it this morning, I went to fill up to get ready to drive over here, and I paid $2.79 a gallon. I drove down to jump on the turnpike, and the station I drove past was $2.59 a gallon. So I was kind of kicking myself, but those, unfortunately, are the risks that we all accept. You know, at the same time, if the price starts to rise, the electricity price is fixed too. So the knife cuts in both directions. So
So finally, thank you. I missed the beginning of your presentation, but is this similar to a no-pack arrangement? Do counties ever come together to even enhance the savings with the volume of purchasing, or is our county, we're just considering the county? Do you ever consolidate counties for purchasing power?
all the time.
So this is part of what you're doing with
This is,
CCC?
in my mind, at this point, I think we have 62 counties that are participating in the electric program and 50-some counties, including yours, on the natural gas program. We do that as we sit today with the gas program. That program is more mature and has been around longer because of the availability to buy natural gas from other parties for a much longer period of time. We're in the process of connecting those dots as we speak and have had conversations with your county, Public Works Department, and other counties around the state of Ohio about creating a process where we start to merge those synergistically and try to take advantage of that economy of scale. With that being said, your county individually is a very large electric consumer, but it's probably less than 1/10 of the size of the total pool available once we get all the counties rowing together at the same time. So it'll be a much greater economy of scale.
So that's a work in progress.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, great. So a number of questions that you asked were on my list. My question is, how much deviation is there from day to day?
In the price or the
price.
consumption at the
In the price.
facilities?
In the price?
The price of electricity from a volatility perspective, and as you can tell from my gray hair, I go a long time back in this game. I've seen it as, depending on when during the day and what's going on, I've seen it as low as 1/2 cent a kilowatt hour and as high as $10 a kilowatt hour from 1 hour to the next, depending on what's going on with supply and demand. Most of the time, 99% of the time or more, it runs somewhere between wholesale 3 cents and 7 cents a kilowatt hour. But during periods of extreme weather conditions, you can see spikes because nobody wants their electricity supply cut off. So it's a very price insensitive market. That's the reason we're coming to you with a price offer that's fixed, for the duration, because those needle spikes can be exceptional and extreme. And but the vast majority of time, wholesale, it's between 3 and 7 cents.
So, not knowing that there's such great possible fluctuation, why in the heck would we do this in August? And was there any thought of extending with well, I know their contract is expiring, but is there any possibility of, what happens, let me raise the question this way, what happens if at the time that the bids are open, that it's a ridiculous price? Is there any possibility of going back to First Energy and rebidding it at a later date? If council passes this, but then the executive finds out the next day that it's not a cost savings, it's going to cost us money, is there any possibility of backing out of this process?
In my mind, because our office is going to be the one doing the analysis, if we open the responses on the day and we can't save you money versus the utility, we'll tell you that straight up and recommend that you sit tight for a month and see if prices calm down, if there's something crazy going on in the marketplace next week, for instance. As for your concern about waiting, and
August,
can we get?
August was
can we
one of
get
my
a bit-
concerns.
Believe it or not, sometimes in the marketplace, the best time to buy is towards the end of a peak season. Because there's a lot of fear in in any market, in any commoditized marketplace, going into a season, oh, it's always gonna be the coldest winter in history, it's always gonna be the hottest summer in history because some weather prognosticator says so. But once the market sees that, hey, it's really not gonna be the coldest winter or the hottest summer ever, they sit back and say, well, that hasn't happened, and then they trade off. And in fact, that's actually what has been going on through this summer, because it really hasn't, with all the rain in June and the like, it hasn't really been that warm relative to, say, 2 summers ago, when we had so much hot weather compared to today. So right now, this is as low as prices have been, and that's reflected in your savings calculations here for basically since November of 2013. It's been a while since prices have been this low. And the reason for that is the expectation that the supply of electric coming into the marketplace is in good shape, and the price of natural gas is much lower than it was last year at this time. And much of the price of electricity is driven by the price of natural gas on a day-to-day basis.
Okay,
Can I add-
so what
Councilman, I'm sorry, I apologize. Can I add one more thing? It's just, the current contract with First Energy was kind of a blended contract. I think the first year and a half, with a relatively low rate, and then on January 1st, the rate spiked up to about 7.5 cents a kilowatt.
7.48.
7.48 cents a kilowatt hour. My sense is if we don't sign a contract, before this contract expires, then we would just continue on a month-to-month contract with the current rate with First Energy at that higher 7.5 cents.
You would revert to the utility. You
Yeah.
would go to, and actually, that would probably be better for you than the 7.4.
Okay, so this is important to me. Can you explain what happens if council passes this and then the executives got the option of accepting or not accepting? What happens with First Energy?
I'm not an attorney, so I'll put that caveat in there, but my understanding of the contract you have with First Energy Solutions says that at the end of that term, if you don't have another agreement or another contract with First Energy Solutions, or you haven't transitioned to another supplier, they will return those facilities back to CEI, the utility. So if we open those prices on that day and we can't save you money and it's a terrible price, and we think if we waited another 2 weeks or a month, the prices would be substantially lower, basically the result of that would be you would revert back to the utility for one billing cycle, and then we would have the opportunity. And I don't know about the contractual piece of it from Department of Law and the resolution and all that, whether that would be permissible inside this kind of a structure, but typically that's what we've done. In fact, we have done that with many customers, and we've made the recommendation on many occasions to customers that can't save money versus their utility cost. Even though it costs our company money, short term, it's better for the customer, and long term, we think we have long-term customers if we tell them, hey, this is what's gonna happen. If you're gonna pay a premium to do this, don't do this now, wait it out. We've done that on many an occasion. I don't foresee that happening in your case, given the market conditions. But once again, on that given day, something blows up in the middle. I mean, there's so many variables in the world that we all live in these days that it's possible, but it's incredibly unlikely given what we know today.
Mr. Chairman.
So I think that's important. If we could, between now and the council meeting, find out, what the options are with CEI, I think council, at least I would feel much more confident in approving this if I knew that we had options. And, it's like a bad day on the stock market. If you tell your broker, okay, on such and such a day, I want you to sell, and it's a bad day, it's good to know that we could we have an option. Mr. Miller?
Mr. Chairman, you said that on a given day the price of electricity could vary from a half a cent to $10 a kilowatt hour. But as I understand it, that's the spot price for immediate purchase.
Correct.
You're not saying that on August 26th that when we get the prices for the 32-month contract, that they're going to vary by that kind of amount. It sounds like that's something different, and that am I right that based on what you're seeing, my question is how much variation is there from day to day on what price we're likely to get quoted for this 32-month contract?
That's exactly what I was trying to get at.
Then maybe I misunderstood the question or didn't answer the question appropriately. Council member, given what I foresee today, the most that I could see the market shift would be 0.2 cents a kilowatt hour, which is about $120,000, $130,000 a year on your electric costs. Still not insignificant sums of money, but because it is a 32-month contract, you're buying for a very long period of time. Short-term movement in a marketplace typically would not be immediately reflected on that entire curve, on that entire price structure. But 0.2 cents a kilowatt hour still isn't insignificant sums of money, even for an organization your size.
Okay, so that thanks for clarifying my question, because I was really concerned.
I apologize if I misled you, council member.
So really, what in your opinion, what we're risking is 0.2 of 1%.
0.2 cent, which is about it's $120,000 to $130,000 a year, one way or the other.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
one other question to Director Foley. Are we getting renewables on the CPP contract, and if so, how much?
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Miller, it's whatever the CPP, there's no, with the current contract with CPP, I don't think we have a set aside like we do currently that says 50% of our energy has to come from renewable resources. It's just whatever CPP has in their own portfolio. We're just, it's being passed on to us, as I understand it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Conlon, you have another question?
This is for Director Lockett. In the past, we've done the best and lowest price. So how would that be handled since we're down to two bidders on this? I guess I'm just assuming that they're both the best. So how will this be handled because I think this is the first time we've done this kind of setup.
Lenora Lockett again, Office of Procurement and Diversity. This process was an RFP process, so while with the bidding process, it's lowest and best, and obviously in the RFP process, when you look at the procurement process, the RFP process on the spectrum can be close to a bid or it can be close to an RFQ depending upon how you rate the different factors. In this case, obviously, price is very important, but we also had other factors like renewables, things of that sort. So.
And you talk about different contracts a lot. Are they rated the same, similar to the gas? Well, putting that high emphasis on the best price. Because in different contracts, you stated you rate things different. So I guess you prioritize what is the best. Is that the same the way we do for the gas supplier?
I believe in this case, in Palmer Energy prepared the actual RFP based on the scope, their selection process. But I know that pricing was a heavy factor.
And I noticed that there's no SBE e-goal in this, can you explain why it's not?
So for the SBE program, first of all, usually the SBE goal is implemented when we're the lead in doing the actual procurement process because it is the county's initiative. In this case, we're using the other program.
Thank you. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Greenspan?
Yes, thank you. A couple areas I want to focus on. So we're talking about estimated 18,000, I don't know who this question's for, an $18,000 per month savings over the current contract.
Correct.
And obviously that's an estimate because we don't know what the locked-in price is going to be on the 26th.
Correct.
It's my intent to monitor that. So maybe Mr. Chambers, if you can tell me how we can monitor that on a monthly basis.
I mean, it's based on current price right now, and the 18,000 also, the factor is whether or not we go 100% wind or stay with the 50% too.
No, look, there's a statement, we're going to save $18,000. I want to know how we're going to measure it at the end of the day. So however the contract's comprised, that's fine, it's great.
Okay.
But there's a statement, we're going to save 18,000. I want to know how we're going to measure that.
The maximum is 18,000, just to make sure we're clear. If we choose to go 100% wind, then obviously our savings is going to go down a little bit more, but potential is 18,000 if we don't go 100%.
So that is based on, basically, obviously, every month your consumption changes based on various factors. So this goes into effect September 1. So say mid-October, we'll be able to compare September 1 of 14 consumption, same buildings. I understand we're expanding, the current contract has more facilities in it than we currently were providing, but in an everything equal environment, if we take 10 buildings and look at their September 14 rate or bill to the same 10 buildings in 15 in September, we'll be able to gauge savings. Is that how?
You will, but remember too, the weather plays a big play in that as well, temperature as well, but we should. I mean, the bottom line is what the hourly rate is versus what we were paying. I think that's what you're.
What we would typically do as part of the overall services and what we've done with natural gas is provide you periodic updates, at least annually, no less than annually. But for something like this, Councilman, if you would want quarterly updates or something like that to say, hey, this is what's been going on. This is what the 24-month contract you just got out of, its average price was just a smidge over 6 cents a kilowatt hour. This is what you actually paid, for the last quarter for these buildings, and just run the comparison on those two. That's something we would be more than willing to provide to yourself and Public Works and any other members of council that would be interested in seeing it.
Yeah, that would be great. So you can do that on a quarterly basis?
No, that wouldn't be any issue whatsoever.
Okay, great. And so we'll stay on top of it. And should we be in contact directly with you or through our Public Works?
We'll forward you copies of it.
Okay, great. All right, great. We'll look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I move that 2015-0156 be referred to council for second reading suspension. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been first and second. Any final questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Goes to council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You'll be available on Tuesday night to answer any questions?
Actually, one of my partners will be here for that
Okay,
particular
great.
meeting.
Thank you
So,
very much.
Yes, thank you.
Next.
Resolution number 2015-0157, authorizing a revenue-generating utility agreement with City of Maple Heights for maintenance and repair of storm sewers, sanitary sewers, and water lines located in County Sewer District Number 9.
Good morning, Stan Kozaleski, Public Works. We're here to present a very similar item to our presentation on August 8th that we presented for the City of Brooklyn. We're presenting a modified sanitary or utility agreement. Presently with the City of Maple Heights, we collect for sanitary and storm sewer services $2.20 per linear foot and 30 cents for $2.20 for sanitary. Storm is 30 cents a foot for a total of $2.50. Working with the City of Maple Heights, they're asking to also ask if we can collect for some water line work. And they've also asked to increase their rate for next year. So right now, the agreement that we have in place, we will collect for sanitary sewers for $2.25 per linear foot, for storm sewers at 40 cents a foot, and then a new cost for water line transmissions at 10%. This is all at the city's request. So we've been providing sanitary sewer services or utility services to our sanitary division for many years. We pull in roughly an estimated $1.2 million of services that we provide back into the communities for this. So that's a very brief overview, and I can answer any questions you might have.
Okay, this is pretty routine by now.
Correct.
We're doing this. I guess my question is, we've been discussing in the past that when we renew the contracts with these cities, that there'd be provision that they would be able to change the rates on different items without having to have an act of council, because it's how do you want to say, no cost to the county.
Right.
Because we're collecting and
Right.
doling out the services. Are we making progress on that?
Yes. Most of the agreements we have our process is that actually the next council meeting, we will be presenting rates for the next fiscal year. That'll be coming in there. What these agreements allow us to do, some of them are older where they're a little bit more restrictive, where we can only do sanitary. So as we're going through, we're trying to clarify the agreements, working with law departments so that they clarify the services a little more, or they'll either add for storm or sanitary. So presently we can adjust those rates, and like I say, we always present those to you for approval. This agreement here now will just allow us to add an additional service that in the past we have not provided.
Okay, great. Any questions?
Yes.
Dale?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kozlowski, does this agreement allow us to change the mix in the future for Maple Heights at the city's request without legislation, or if the mix between the different services is to be changed, would it have to come back to council?
Yes and no. Sorry. It will be a resolution changed by this council. What we will get is we will get a request from the city to alter services. Like right now, we're increasing a little bit for stormwater because obviously of all the stormwater issues that are out there. But annually, we go out to the communities and we say, are our rates good? Are we providing the services in the right areas? Do we see is there something coming up that we might need to shift monies for? We get a letter from the cities because that's how we can amend it. And then we present that to you like around the first week in September. So it goes on to the tax duplicates. So your council approves it. We get letters from the communities. That's how the agreements are structured.
Does this resolution have any time length attached to it, or is it permanent?
I think it's till we mutually agree, or one can cancel on, let me see what the language says in here. Termination of agreement, we can terminate it within 30 days, either the city or the county. So at that time, if we have funds available or something like that, we would have to work out how we would, because we collect those funds for that community, but there is a termination clause.
So, as you describe it, it still would require council approval to change the service mix. So we're not
Correct.
We're not yet at the point that the chairman is recommending.
Correct. The service mix would actually, based on the funding that we collect, would be presented at next council meeting. So this is we're setting the agreement up for services for 2016. Sorry.
Is there any projects that are pending that they're waiting for this thing to get improved, or is this?
No, we're just
this
looking to
routine?
shift a little bit more into the storm water management. And one of the reasons why they want to do the water line work too, sometimes the water department, they have that agreement with the water department. Sometimes there's a little bit more work that's required and they're left a little bit short, and sometimes the communities can't afford to pay that little cost. So they want to set aside a little bit of money in case there's some additional work that's required, that they can utilize these funds so it doesn't come out of their general fund.
Okay, so then this can go with second reading.
Yes, a second reading suspension.
It needs second reading suspension.
No, I think we did that with the Brooklyn Heights, so I would like if we could do that. So then this way, this agreement would be in place when we start the readings for the rates.
Makes sense. Okay. So I'll move for second reading suspension to council. Is there a second? Any final questions on this? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. It's going to council under second reading suspension. Next item.
Resolution number 2015-0158, a resolution authorizing the Director of Public Works to execute and submit various supplemental loan applications to the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.
Good morning. Again, Stan Kozaleski. The first two items that we have here, these are for when we work on projects in the sanitary area, if they're capital projects. What we do is we usually get a water pollution control loan to fund for the construction, and then we use the funds that we just talked about before to pay off those loans. Before you, there's two different amendments to the existing water pollution control loan. The way they work that is they want the county entity to go ahead, do the work, make the approved amendments, and then we go back to them for the adjustments into the loan documents. So the first one here is for, or the one I have in front of me, it's for $189,000 for the North Granger Sewer Project. This was approved by the Board of Controls in 2013. We've been working with the Water Pollution Control Loan and Ohio EPA over the last 2 years. They weren't sure if these items would be eligible for the loans. We've been working with them, and it is. So we're asking to modify the loan based on the approval of the change order passed in 2013 through the Board of Control. So that's how that process is. That's why that's a little bit later. On the second one, it's for $38,000 for a Broadview Road drill drop project. And some of you that are on the Board of Controls, on April 27th of this year, we approved the contract amendment. So this isn't, there's no issues here. So we get that approval, we send it to them, they modify the paperwork for the loan so we can go forward. That's how those two amendments go forward.
Is this, is there a time limit on this?
Mike, do we need? We can go third reading on these, there's no.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, I'll move for second reading to council.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Any final questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. 159.
Resolution number 2015-0159, authorizing the Director of Public Works to execute and submit a loan application in the amount of $1,340,000 to the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency for construction of a gravity sanitary sewer in connection with the Broad Rock Drill Drop Project located in the city of Parma, County Sewer District number 1A.
Good morning, Stan Kozaleski. This is a project that we've submitted for the loan, and they've agreed to our loan request. So this is basically authorizing us to go ahead and give the executive the authority to sign. We're anticipating that the project will be bid later this year. Then the Water Pollution Control Loan folks will send us those final documents based on the bid amount. We anticipate the start of this project sometime in early 16 and completing probably the June of 17. Again, the plans will be going out to bid shortly. If you have any questions or details about the specifics of the project, I have our Chief Sanitary Engineer department head here. But basically, this is in advance of the bidding process. They want to make sure that we're on board with the loan. We bid the project. They will finalize the loan agreement at that time for the bid amount. Here to answer any more questions that you might have.
Okay, so Councilwoman Conwell would like to know what the drill drop.
Hugh, if you don't mind, I could explain it to you, but I will probably confuse you more than the energy comments.
Hugh Bloxage with the Department of Public Works, council members. Drill drop is it's a type of connection. We're tying into a tunnel that's about 150 feet below the ground surface. So rather than a typical manhole connection that we would do, we're going to be drilling a shaft, probably about 8 feet in diameter, down to the tunnel, making a pipe connection to that tunnel, and then raising up with what will be a general manhole at that point. So it's just because we're drilling down to it, that's why we call it a drill drop rather than a typical drop.
It makes it a more easier access when you're repairing or you're doing the work.
Yes, rather than digging a trench, we drill a hole. It's a method of doing construction. So we by drilling the hole, we can limit it to about an 8-foot diameter hole. If we tried to excavate it with typical excavation equipment, we'd end up with a much larger hole. So this becomes a lower cost alternative to get down 150 feet or so.
Just one needed per project?
This is a single project. It'll eventually serve 2 streets in Parma that are currently on septic systems. Those septic systems are under findings and orders through Parma to be eliminated. And rather than building 2 new pump stations, which themselves are expensive to both construct and operate, a study was done that showed that the best way to do this in the long term was to do a drill drop into the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District's Tuxedo Tunnel that runs through that area.
Where exactly is this? Is this on Broadview Road?
This is just to the east of Broadview Road. It's where Old Rockside Road comes into New Rockside Road.
Right,
That's where the drill drop will essentially be.
okay.
The streets that are being served come off of Broadview Road. Both Old Rockside and Broad Rock Court come off of Broadview Road, head east to the Seven Hills line. One is a cul-de-sac. One has become a cul-de-sac, and that Old Rockside Road has been blocked off by the 2 communities, so nobody uses it as a cut-through anymore. So all the work will be in Parma, but some of the access will be through Seven Hills. There's always but the vast majority of the work will be done. Our setup point for construction is in the city of Parma. We'll be drilling through, we'll be touching a little bit of Seven Hills on one of the easements, but then we go back into Parma.
Is this primarily for the condominium associations there?
No, it's the condominiums are sewered different. They tie in at a different location. The 2 streets are existing streets, probably have had houses in them for 50+ years. If you've ever been down any of the streets, there's a lot of doubles, houses on those, and from the sanitary engineering standpoint, you look at it and go, you wonder why they ever put septic tanks in here. Because there's a reason why it's called Old Rockside and Broad Rock. We hit rock at a very shallow elevation, which is not very good for septic tanks in the long run.
Okay.
So West Creek Water Quality Improvement Project, in a sense.
Great. Any other questions? There's no time, is there any time
No, I think
situation?
as Stan was saying, there's no rush that we have to, we have to skip a reading or anything like that.
Okay.
No. We can go for third reading. We are 90% plus or minus complete. We're in the getting all the easements that are required, getting all those signed off.
Okay, great. I'll move for a second reading to council. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Any final questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any public comment?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a question for Mr. Kozlowski. On the 26th, well, let's say the 27th, if you could let council know of the rate that was locked in under the first items contract, that would be appreciated.
We'll do that.
As well as in comparison to the existing rate.
We'll do.
Thank you.
Other public comment?
No, Mr. Chair, no one has signed in.
Okay, well, that concludes our agenda, so this meeting stands adjourned.